episode of the Preacher Girl podcast. My name is Pastor Sharo, and I just want to talk to you for a few minutes today about waiting on your miracle. How many of you out there, maybe you listening to me right now, have been waiting for something from God for a long time? Maybe you prayed for it and you didn't see it happen, or maybe you don't believe in miracles even though you're a Christian. So I want to talk to you today about whether or not miracles are true and what you can do while you wait. And is there anything as Christians that we can do to speed our miracle along or to make sure that God answers our prayer? If you're interested in this, then these are just my thoughts on what to do while you're waiting on your miracle. My life has been dotted with miracles. I think the first miracle I can ever remember was just praying for a car to pick us up on the street while my godmother and I were walking down the road, and it was hot. I remember that day. It was like midday. It was so hot. And back then it was 40 some years ago. In Trinidad, it is maybe 100 degrees, and I'm small, and I'm thinking, I wish someone could drive a car by and pick us up. Lord, can you send someone? And I opened my eyes and there was a car. And we jumped into that car, which had AC, which, is no big deal now, but 40 years ago in my country, in the road where we were walking, to see a car at all was a big deal. And for one to be there the minute I opened my eyes, I instantly knew that God had answered, and it was a miracle. And so, a lot of people might dismiss miracles as coincidences, or they think, it's just fate or things like that. As a Christian, I don't believe in fate and I don't believe in luck. Those are two words that do not exist in my Christian vocabulary. Even if I use them, it's not in context to describe who I am or my characteristics. Fate nor luck has anything to do with the blessings in my life. It has all to do with blessings and miracles. And so this is the first thing I just want to get back into your mind. Sometimes you miss the miracles and they're all around you, but because you've been trained to think that this is luck or this is coincidence or this is chance, you don't recognize miracles when they happen. Do you think that in your life at some point you have negated a miracle or forgotten about it? Is there anything that you prayed for a long time or very ardently you told the Lord, if you do this for me, then I will never ask for another thing again, and then he did it? And then you forgot and you asked for another thing, or you forgot to even say thank you to God that he did that for you? Well, I think that we need to recultivate the mindset that we recognize what God has done for us, and we just take moments to recognize and appreciate miracles. They happen every day. Most of the times we want to see the miracles like the lame walk and the dumb talk and the dead raised. Those are the things we want to see. We want to see 5,000 plus men plus women and children fed with 5 loaves and 2 fish. We want to see someone walking on the water, and then we'll classify those things as miracles. But even though those things are possible, and yes, they still do happen, the kind of miracles that happen every single day with us are the ones that we fail to recognize. But I think that God is waiting for the church to recognize those again. The times that we did not get in a wreck, the times when we woke up and still were in our right minds even after the hardest and most excruciatingly painful night, the times when the doctor said one thing but God did another thing. My life went through that kind of thing during COVID. I actually had COVID, and we all did at some point, most of us, but right in the middle of my COVID experience, I had another very scary experience. A lot of abdominal pain, a lot of bleeding, a lot of swelling, edema, and discomfort. And so I went to the doctor and found out that they found some cells in my body that didn't look right. They did a biopsy and they sent it off, and then they found an elevated cancer marker, and one thing snowballed into another. 2 MRIs later, I was scheduled for surgery. And it, at the time I was very, nonchalant about it in a way because nobody was there. Usually when you have a bunch of people around you and the panic or the reality of what's happening set in, but I couldn't see my mom and dad. My one of my brothers is in Florida, one is in here, but we didn't have that group grieving. And group grieving really lets sickness especially hit home. And it didn't hit home for me too much until I sat in the hospital room and I'm having my blood drawn and going for tests and doing the pre-op stuff, that I realized, wait a minute, this is big and this is surgery. And they had said that not only did they see something in my lower abdomen, but they saw spots on my liver and one thing after the other. So of course, all of the scary thoughts start going through my mind. What if there's cancer in my body? What if it's spread everywhere? What if it's too late for me? And what if it's time for God to call me home? And there's nothing like a terminal diagnosis or just a scare of cancer to make you reevaluate where your life is, to reevaluate what you've done in your life. And that sermon they used to preach to us in youth group, like, what do you want people to say at your funeral? Or what do you want spoken in your epitaph and written on your tombstone? That kind of stuff really hits home and it becomes reality. And I started thinking about, what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? How do I want to be remembered? And I realized something. It really doesn't matter to me that much. When I'm gone, I hope people have good things to say, and it would be great for people to remember me fondly. But more important than what people have to say about me when I'm not here is what God has to say about me when I'm not here. Because if I leave this body, I am before God, and so are you. If you die, you stand before God. But today I'm talking about miracles. So even in the reevaluation of where I was, and I know so many people that didn't in this mortal body survive cancer, and I was thinking, Lord, I don't want to fight this. I don't want to fight this by myself. I don't want to be the one to keep my hopes up and keep a positive attitude while I'm dying and on the inside. And I thought about all my friends and people that I know and people that you know today that are struggling with a terminal illness, but yet still have their chin up and still have a positive attitude. And I just want to ask you today to just reach out to them and just commend them and bless them and just talk to them and tell them how brave they are, because that in itself is a miracle. To know that things are the way they are, and for them to still have a positive countenance, to smile for their children, to encourage those around them not to give up, to keep the faith when everybody else around them might not be keeping it. And I'm telling you, that's miraculous. The human spirit in them that God blessed them with in itself is a miracle. Well, long story short, I never had surgery, because on the day of my surgery, the day before I was scheduled to go in for surgery, the doctor called and said that the new scans had revealed that the mass that was in my lower abdomen had disappeared. It was nowhere to be found, and that there was no need for any surgery, and there were no cancer cells in my body. And so that miracle happened to me, myself. And sometimes when I pray for people and they get healed, or some of them don't get healed, I have to take somebody's word for it. But when it happens to you, all of a sudden you are the miracle magnet. You're the one that you're standing in miracle territory, and God has given you such a gift to steward, and he's asking you, what are you going to do with that? Some of you have heard my story before and you're tired of hearing it, but I'll never get tired of saying it, because the alternative was me fighting a battle that I didn't want to fight right then or ever. And I just felt like today I wanted to give God thanks and praise, and to encourage somebody today to say that he still does miracles. Why did he do it for me? I want to tell you one thing beyond the shadow of a doubt. I don't think it had anything to do with me per se. It's not because I prayed a certain way. It's not because I said the right things or acted the right way. God is kind and he is loving, and he will have mercy on whom he will have mercy, and he will heal whom he will heal. I just believe my time on earth and the job that he put me here to do wasn't finished. That's why I believe that he healed my body, because he won't allow us to leave this earth earth until we have accomplished what he has set us out to accomplish. One of the reasons why I think people don't get miracles like they want is because they're asking for the wrong miracles. Lord, I want to wake up in the morning and let there be an S550 Mercedes-Benz black with chrome rims parked in my garage. And you get up in the morning and there is no miracle there. There's no car there. And you're like, well, God didn't answer my prayer. Or maybe it's not for a luxury item. Maybe it's for a healing. Maybe it's for a child. Maybe it's for a husband. I don't know what it is you're believing God for, but it didn't happen yet. And every day, instead of believing for one more day, you get a little more discouraged or a little more broken. And I'm here to tell you, just because that one miracle happened, it didn't mean other things I'm waiting for happen yet. But while I wait, what do I do while I wait for God to do what I'm so asking and desperate for him to do? I remember what he has already done. Every single morning and every single night, I have my miracle journal and I write the things down that he did for me in that season, in that day. The only times I will skip that is if I forget my book at home and I'm somewhere else in the world. But even then, I'll write it in my phone before I go to bed. God, I remember you. I remember your mighty acts. I remember what you have done. And I look forward to what you're going to do. And you don't need to do anything for me, but I'm so thankful and grateful that you did. One of the biggest and most awesome miracles in my life happened about 12 years ago when I first moved to New York City, and I was looking for a place to have a church. In fact, I had a small place that would hold about 75 people when it was jam-packed. And after a lot of walking around New York and praying and asking people for help and going to real estate agents and getting turned down and told there's no space in New York, especially not for a church that has no money like ours, I realized like there's no hope here except a miracle would happen. That's all that would do it. And I can't tell you where my faith quotient was. I can't tell you what the temperature of my faith was, if I was at 100 degrees or at 0 degrees in that point. But all I knew was I depended on God. I had to depend on God because I didn't have the resource and I didn't know anybody with those resources to help me get a space to do church in New York. But we could pray. And that's what we did. We prayed and asked God for a place to have a church where it would hold about 500 people and more than 3 cars could park in the yard or something like that. We weren't even looking for a yard. We were just looking for a storefront. And God miraculously, I'm telling you, it was just a miracle. And 12 years later, I still celebrate that miracle. And I know to some people it might not be a big deal because they've had all kinds of cash and stuff happen to them since then. But to me, it is one of the watershed moments of my life that completely changed the direction of my life forever. Because I found this building, the building where Hope NYC is, where Compass Cafe is, where Arc Academy School is, the building where we record the Preacher Girl podcast every week from. This is a $4.2 million building that same season of expectation in my life, God sent somebody to pay this for this entire building. Can you imagine that? If you know who I am, and my first job, I made 75 Trinidad and Tobago dollars a week, which is the equivalent of about 10 US dollars a week. And here, God gave me a building like this worth so many millions of dollars, which, like I said, to some might not be a big deal, but to me, it was a massive and humongous miracle that till the day I die, no matter if hundreds of millions of dollars will cross my hands, I shall never, ever forget. But I shall never forget the taxi that stopped to pick me up on a hot, hot July day when I was just a little girl. And I shall never forget the day that cancer disappeared from my body. Or I shall never forget the day that a deaf girl started hearing at a meeting I was preaching in Chicago. Or I'll never forget the day somebody that didn't know any English started speaking fluent English in Africa. I'll never forget the day when I encountered friends and people that would change my life forever. All of those are miracles. So what do you do while you wait for your miracle? One, you remember what he has already done. Two, you pray with expectation that God is exactly who he is. Now, I didn't say pray and expect to get it. You can do that if you want. But more important than having it is knowing that God is who he says he is. Somebody out there today, you might be sick. You might be desperately wanting something from God. You might be lonely. You might be depressed. You might be broke or whatever it is. And I know this podcast is a little bit different, but I just feel the need to encourage you and to speak faith into your life and to ask you to do this third thing. Remember God. It's so easy in the new seasons when we go through new blessings and we get new stuff and we go through different phases in our life to forget where he has brought us from. But remember him. Remember God. And instead of feeling ungrateful and feeling slighted or feeling depressed over what you don't have, remember what he has already done, what he has already given, who he has already been to you. And all of a sudden, the joy springs up in your soul because there's no medicine on this planet like gratitude. There's no medicine like gratitude. Today, I'm expecting and believing that your God, Jehovah, who is the God of miracles, will show up for you. And don't give up. Don't give up on God. He is powerful, he is mighty, and he can absolutely do what his word says he can do. If you enjoyed this podcast today, please give it a thumbs up. Please like and subscribe and share it on social media, especially if you know somebody that needs a miracle in their life. Even if they don't believe in God, he still believes in them. And don't you ever forget that if God called you, no one can uncall you. And girl, you don't need a pulpit. You just need a message. Have a good one. Bye.